Hi everyone, myself Ajay. I'm a Salesforce expert and a certified developer. I'm also CTO of Cloud Analogy. This particular video is all about Salesforce application development for AppExchange. Now, let me begin. So first of all, what is AppExchange? As you all might have already aware of, Salesforce AppExchange is a place where you can develop apps, you can download them, install them on your Salesforce CRM. So it's a place where all the kind of business apps comes in. They can be free apps, there can be paid apps, there can be apps specific to a certain domain, finance, manufacturing. So a particular app on Salesforce is nothing but a collection of components which can be managed or either be unmanaged. And with this new Lightning in the domain, Lightning, Salesforce Lightning, which got launched last year in 2015, you can also have Lightning components, a small piece of code logic, which can be there. So let me first quickly tell you a bit about the application which we already have. Application such as multi-utility, deck sync, and drag and drop. So I'll be explaining one by one each one of them in a quick format. So all you need to do is first go to Google, type in AppExchange Cloud Analogy. You can get all those links, or alternatively you can go directly on Salesforce AppExchange and you can search about by typing Cloud Analogy. So let me quickly open up each one of the application. So you can see that we have already developed a couple of applications on AppExchange which are free. So you can see that they are free. They were launched at a specific date and they have the installation button. So if you click on get it now, you can install it on your Salesforce sandbox or production, any particular edition as mentioned in the details. So these all are the different section of the AppExchange. Over here, whenever you have a published app, you can publicly view it over here, and you can also review the various application over here. So you can see that as this has already been reviewed. Similarly, we have other apps like multi-utility, which is again a small app, a pretty good one. You can, before installing, you can also click over here and you can view the video how it works. All these simply means that you need a lot of preparation for an app to be released on AppExchange. You need to know which particular domain you are going to target, what all should be the content, how it should look, how it should attract people, and how it should build more trust. So in order to do that, it's very much necessary that you come up with a good video, you come up with all those screenshots with descriptive information on it, and it should have details and it should have all the information which is required. So if I go back to the slide, let me explain one by one the strategy behind AppExchange application development. So the way I have used Salesforce AppExchange app development planning, or the strategy which I have built up, is plan, develop, test, publish, and maintain. So even before you start planning everything, just remember that you are going to put this application out for a business community. Salesforce is all about business. It's not a fun game like as you can do it on Android or on Mac. So it's a business app. So it's going to be a business app, it's a serious thing. So we should always come up with an idea, a plan, or a strategy based on like it's going to be used by business people, and it should have a support. Okay, so it's not that only one person can go ahead and develop something without having a backend support to it, because people will have a look at it, install it, review it. So it's not also a one-time thing. You should also come up with different releases and all. So first of all, about planning. Now, in order to plan the entire process, we should remember that the planning first step is what should be the feature, what should be the list of ideas, the problem which you are going to solve. There should be set of questions which you should ask before actually starting working on a particular application. The first is what problem your app is going to solve. That is a very important question. If your app is not going to solve any problem, then what is the purpose? Why people are going to install it? It doesn't make much sense then. The second is the domain, the industry. Is it related to finance domain? Is it related to manufacturing domain? Is which particular domain it belongs to? Or is it a generic app? Which in my case, the application which we have developed, drag and drop or multi-utility, is not any domain specific. It's a generic app. Everyone can install it. The third and most important question is it going to be a single feature or a multiple feature app? Most of the time, you may come up with a single idea, a single feature, and it might be solving one single problem, which is a good thing, because designing a particular app as a single feature is pretty easy as compared to multiple features, an entire suite of features of an application. Okay, that's a complex thing, and to do that you will need a team. You will need at least 2-3 good developers. You will need to have a plan, a time based milestone. The background study is also mandatory. You should have a background study. You should not go ahead and reinvent. You should have a very well thought scenario. Not a single one, but all the end scenarios, edge cases in which your application can be used by different users. You should also be a bit concerned about which all particular Salesforce edition in which your application is going to run. Will it be only unlimited edition, or will it be a professional edition as well? Which all particular Salesforce edition are going to have your application working properly? So keeping all these things in mind, you should come up with an idea, or to say pre-plan before actually starting working on it. The second step is obviously developing. Developing an application will always need a planned development model. Several small size utility tool type application can be developed straight from idea and may not need a development plan, but the application having some wizard of pages may need a phase-wise release cycle. You should also come up with like a list of components which will be developed via coding, a list of components which can be done via configuration. A simple example would be like sending emails. You can send emails via both code and workflow rules, email templates. So it is best advisable that you send out emails using the Salesforce standard mechanism, workflow rules, and not customize everything with programming. While developing application in Salesforce, a developer will need the same sets of do's and don'ts as in ideal Salesforce developing phase. Make sure that your application is doing only those stuff which it is supposed to do. It should not be updating fields or records unnecessarily. A very important point to note is deleting records. So you should be very careful while writing a code which will be deleting anything. That's a very important point. Your code should not randomly delete anything. In my experience, I have seen several issues with applications which are pretty famous on AppExchange having those problems. And just to give you an example of few, a particular application was sending emails to the leads which are getting converted. Sending emails to those leads which are getting converted, that you are converted. Just imagine how embarrassing it will be. Like you are sending emails to the leads that they are getting converted in your Salesforce account, not to the manager, not to the system admin. You're sending the emails directly to the leads. So that's an embarrassing situation. We should avoid doing that. So your development process will obviously, if you are doing a multi-featured application development, you should always follow a process like feature development 1, feature development 2, feature development 3 should go ahead in different orgs. They can go ahead in different orgs. They can be merged. They can be basically tested. And once done, they can be integrated in a different org. You can call it an integrated testing. And then you can move it to a packaging org. And I'll come towards it, like what is a packaging org. But in a packaging org, it's always a final set of code, a very well tested working code, because in packaging org you are going to make a package, and then again an entire set of testing will begin with the packaging. Now with testing, let me briefly tell what should be a testing be like. The testing should go ahead in at least three multiple phases. So the first is obviously the basic testing, which can be done in development org itself, in which your feature or the app is getting developed. Salesforce will request developers to have a separate developer org designated for testing. Make sure that no matter how complex a Salesforce org can be configured, still your application will not get affected. So that's one of the key thing. Other key thing which you should make sure is features which you activate, like orders. Orders are not activated by default in your org. So if you are activating a feature like order or contracts or multi-currency, and you are developing your feature on top of it, then it's 100% sure that by default, whenever your application is pushed or is ready to get installed, it will have those features as mandatory. Now you should always test them as well, and before even developing it, you should plan it out. Like, okay, your application is going to be installed only on those app orgs in which those features will be pre-activated, or otherwise it will throw an error. Like, okay, your org doesn't fit the required criteria. So you should be very careful with those things, which all feature of Salesforce custom features which you are going to use. So in testing, coming back to testing, we should also do Aloha app testing. Aloha app testing simply means that testing the very first version. You should always follow the pattern of release beta and then a released version. And because releasing a version is a major thing, releasing is always a major thing, and your testing should also go ahead in different phases. Or to say, like, if you are developing an app for both professional edition, developer edition, sandbox edition, then your application should also be tested in those different editions of Salesforce, those different orgs of Salesforce. You should be very well versed with rigorous testing. Make sure that triggers should be bulkified. Web service must be tested for heavy usage if you are doing a web service. Visual Force pages, etc. All features and components in the package must be tested in a detailed fashion. Now let us move on to publishing. Now this is a key part, and sometimes it may take too long. it may take more time in publishing an app rather than developing it. So I have faced it like in several application development projects. What happens is like developing an app took almost like a month or 2 months, but publishing might take 6 months. The reason being a strict process, which is also good, a strict process being followed by Salesforce itself. You need to do a checkmarks review. You should be absolutely sure that your checkmarks code is not failing, throwing any error. Submit for app reviews. Before submitting for app review, you should be absolutely sure that your application is well tested. It's installed already in an org with the configurational data, with the dummy data, and it's working properly. Submitting for app review might not need uh, a set of media files, installation docs, configuration docs, but you should, on sideways, you should start creating them, because as soon as it is published, you're ready to put it on AppExchange. You should have the content. So publishing an app on AppExchange requires a lot of pre-planning as well. Content. Before I move into content, one last point about app review is like, if it fails, don't lose hope. The thing is, like, I have seen several times an app getting failed just because of a very small mistake over here or there. Okay, so make sure the code coverage is perfect and all your set of checklist is done properly, and only then you are going to submit it for review. Because if it fails after like 2 weeks of waiting or 3 weeks of waiting, it is again going to take another month until and unless it gets back onto the review cycle. Sometimes it does happens like they quickly go ahead and review it, but it not happens for all the cases. So be prepared for the worst, and if you get it passed on the very first step, I hope you have watched this video. Okay, so I talked about content. Make sure that you have banners, screenshots, user installation guide, the way I showed you about the drag and drop application, the dex sync, multi-utility. So you should have all those things. The installation guide should be perfect. It should have all the various scenarios in which it might fail. It might have a different addition. An application user guide should be also perfect. What happens if all those if then else logic should be also there, like if this breaks, if that breaks, which to whom you should contact and all those things. So the contact details is also key, because all these content will be read and observed by your end users. So they should not come back to you and complain like, okay, the details are not there. So once that is done, be sure, be confident that you are going to publish it. Now, once your app is there out in AppExchange, don't forget about it. Remember that people are going to use your app, or sometimes they may come back to you with new feature request. Be very keen to know, or to at least revert back to your end clients or end users like, okay, this particular feature is good enough, we are going to develop it in next release or not. So you should be very absolutely clear on that. Communication is the key. So when you are connecting with end users, make sure that you are having a plan. Don't commit anything without having a plan. Maintenance is very much important, because Salesforce regularly updates its own software, its own org, right? So Salesforce comes up with regular releases cycles, and with every 3 months they come up with different features. So it may happen that your app might get old or might get obsolete. So make sure that you have that added advantage to it. And I think this particular video will help you a lot in planning out your next app, okay, or your first app probably. Do contact us if you have an idea, or you think that this idea is going to be super awesome if it is put on AppExchange. Probably you can talk to us, we can help you around with that. You have our contact, the Skype, Do let us know if you need anything. Thank you.